Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing fine and staying safe home. And it's too cold in North India, and it's really like the cold is now breaking the records. So we are staying cold here in North India. So I hope you all are doing fine and all are up with your preparations. We have today as a legal awareness topic this new issue, the NDPS Amendment Bill 2021. The NDPS is what? NDPS, we have an act, Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act. Okay, N stands for narcotics, D stands for drugs, P stands for psychotropic, and S stands for substances. Act 1985. This legislation deals with all sorts of illicit trafficking of drugs, the consumption and usage, the sale and purchase and consumption of which is strictly prohibited, and any such activity is a punishable offense. Okay, this bill, this act, Narcotic, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985, also lists certain substances to be included in the list of narcotic, drugs and psychotropic substances. Okay, all of the drugs and all of these substances have been categorically listed in Narcotic, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances list under this NDPS Act of 1985. Okay, are you getting my point? Moreover, this also regulates the sale and purchase of certain narcotic, drugs and psychotropic substances in a limited or in a certain quantity only to a limited number of people who are eligible with a certain qualification to indulge into the sale and purchase of these kinds of drugs, especially for the medicinal uses or purposes. Okay, usually the people, especially we have large rackets working in India with regard to the drug usage. Okay, and the we have a regulation of these kinds of activities through these Narcotic, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985. Okay, now this Narcotic, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985 has been amended recently by the NDPS Amendment Bill 2021. Earlier, many amendments have taken place in the NDPS Act of 1985, but this bill is a recent one and so is a matter of discussion for all of us to study as part of the current affairness or current issue. Okay, recently the NDPS Amendment Bill 2021 was introduced in Lok Sabha. Okay, the bill will amend the Narcotic, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985. Right. The NDPS Amendment Bill 2021 was introduced in Lok Sabha. The bill will amend the Narcotic, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985. Narcotic, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985. Now, we are going to read some basic certain points about the NDPS Act of 1985. The Act regulates certain operations such as manufacture, transport, and consumption related to narcotic, drugs, and psychotropic substances. So the Act basically deals with the regulation of certain operations. What kind of operations? Such as manufacture, transport, and consumption related to narcotic, drugs, and psychotropic substances. I have already told you that they are not strictly prohibited for all the people in all the circumstances. They are in general prohibited, and also any such activity by any such person is a punishable offense. But this also regulates. This does not exclusively prohibits these operations. This act rather regulates these certain operations. What is the difference between a complete prohibition complete prohibition and regulation? Complete prohibition is that NDPS is simply prohibiting. NDPS is simply prohibiting. Okay, prohibiting what? In the usage of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. Okay, narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. But it is also, it's not simply prohibiting it, it is regulating it. What happens when it is regulated? That means it is allowed in circumstances. The manufacture, transport, sale and purchase and consumption of these narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances is allowed in certain particular given circumstances only by the licensed people, only with a special beneficial purposes. Okay. So this act regulates certain operations such as manufacture, transport and consumption related to narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. Second, under the act, financing certain illicit activities such as cultivating cannabis, manufacturing narcotic drugs or harboring persons engaged in them is an offense. Okay. What is the another feature of this act? Another feature of this act is that it finances certain illicit activities. It punishes certain activities. Like if somebody is financing the illicit activities such as cultivating cannabis, manufacturing narcotic drugs or harboring persons engaged in them is an offense. Okay, anybody who is growing cannabis on the land, in his land, anybody who is manufacturing narcotic drugs, anybody who is harboring persons, like the police is hankering after him and he's being harbored by either you or me, then we will also have to face the liability. Okay, like we should not help these criminals, or harboring persons engaged in them is an offense. Like if you are harboring them, if you are providing them with safe havens so that they can either cultivate or manufacture or engage in consumption or transport of cannabis or other ND or PS, then in that case it's going to be an offense for us also. So under the act, financing certain illicit activities such as cultivating cannabis, manufacturing narcotic drugs or harboring persons engaged in them is an offense. Okay. Now, persons found guilty of this offense will be punished with rigorous imprisonment of at least 10 years, extendable up to 20 years, and a fine of at least rupees 1 lakh. Okay, persons found guilty of this offense will be punished with rigorous imprisonment of at least 10 years. Now, this is the quantum of punishment. This bullet point deals with the quantum of punishment. What is the quantum of punishment? Persons found guilty of this offense will be punished with rigorous imprisonment of at least 10 years, extendable up to 20 years, and a fine of at least rupees 1 lakh. Like this depends upon the decision of the court, that whether that the punishment has to range from 10 years up to 20 years. It can start from 10 years and then it can go up to maximum limit is up to 20 years. Okay, or it may be somewhere between 10 and 20, and a fine of at least rupees 1 lakh. It's and a fine, it's not or a fine, it's and a fine. That means the fine of rupees 1 lakh is already accompanied with the quantum of punishment, with the imprisonment. Okay. Then there's one question: is cultivation of these drugs also allowed in certain cases like cannabis? Okay, Ankita is asking, this is amended portion of the previous one. No, this is the previous one. Like we are reading the NDPS Act of 1985. It has not gone anywhere. These are the basic features of the NDPS Act 1985. Okay, we will read the amendment now after this. And if this Jaswat is asking, is cultivation of these drugs allowed in certain cases like cannabis, I would say yes, because we have read this bullet point. Read this first bullet point. The act regulates certain operations such as manufacture, transport and consumption related to narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. Okay, right? Is cultivation of these drugs also allowed in certain cases? The act regulates it. The act simply does not prohibits it. The act regulates it. What do you mean by regulation? Regulation means that, you know, it should be allowed in certain cases. It should be allowed in some special circumstances. Obviously, cultivation would be allowed. How will then it be used for medicinal purposes unless it is cultivated? Okay. So it has to be cultivated. That means that doesn't matter cultivation. Oh, simply if your concern is that the first point does not mention cultivation, it is a general thing. It's these points are generally written in a general simple language. This may or may not include certain words. This simply explaining that it regulates such as manufacture, transport and consumption. It's not like that they are limited to manufacture, transport and consumption. Okay. Okay. Then it also provides for forfeiture of property derived from or used in illicit traffic in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. Like it provides for forfeiture of property derived from or used in illicit traffic in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. Like there is a provision in the law that the property can also be forfeited, will also or shall also be forfeited, which has been used in the illicit traffic in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. Any property that was used can be forfeited. Okay. Then it also provides for death penalty in some cases where a person is a repeat offender. Where a person is a repeat offender, it also provides for death penalty in some cases where a person is a repeat offender. Now there is a term used for a repeat offender. What is that term? Do you know? Like I have a question, a general question from you. If you people have read criminology or the criminal law, I guess you must be knowing there is a term used for a repeat offender. What is that term? What is that word? Do you know? No, it's not habitual offender. No. No. He is known as under the legal term which is used for him. No, it's not habitual offender. The legal term which is used for a repeat offender is recidivist. 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 And this tendency to commit an offense again and again and again is known as recidivism. Okay, while reading certain theories of punishment, we often come across this problem of recidivism, that certain punishments, they encourage these criminals to indulge into recidivism and become a recidivist. Okay, so we have to follow a certain particular punishment, or a theory of punishment has to be implemented. That theory of punishment has to be implemented which suppresses the tendency of recidivism or kills completely a recidivist inside a person. So who is that person who is a repeat offender? A recidivist. RECIDIVIST. Remember this. Okay. So it also provides for a death penalty in some cases where a person is a repeat offender. Okay. The Narcotics Control Bureau was also constituted in 1986 under the Act. Okay. The Narcotics Control Bureau was also constituted in 1986 under the Act. Do you remember, like, we have come across a lot of Narcotics Control Bureau thing and these kinds of things. Yes, Ankita, this is the right spelling, recidivist. Okay. अभी हम लोगों ने कुछ टाइम पहले ये चीजें बहुत न्यूज में देखी हैं, है ना? हम लोगों ने, मैंने एक न्यूज मेंशन भी करी है अभी, आप पीडीएफ डॉक जो मैंने आपके साथ शेयर किया है उस डॉक्यूमेंट में आप देखेंगे मैंने आपके साथ एक न्यूज़पेपर क्लिपिंग भी शेयर की है, और उस न्यूज़पेपर क्लिपिंग है लाइक आपको एक आइडिया देने के लिए, इस लेक्चर को थोड़ा सा बताने के लिए, करंट रेलेवेंट टाइम्स में जोड़ने के लिए कि ये चीजें कितना अभी न्यूज में थी. आफ्टर द सुशांत सिंह राजपूत सुसाइड केस, there was a lot of discussions, thorough discussions in the media regarding the excessive usage of drugs in the film industry and by these actors and actresses. So there was a lot of a hue and cry when Sushant Singh Rajput committed suicide. Riya Chakravarti was accused and she was like made to, she was badly interrogated and she was like made to hustle from one place to another for interrogations, and like these kinds of things have happened, and many news and many things have come out during these sorts of investigations that people in general, like good number of people in general are involved in the usage of drugs in the film industry. So the Narcotics Control Bureau was also constituted in 1986 under the Act. Now, while I am reading these points, make sure that you note them down, or you remember them, or you learn them, because these are the important nuggets of information that you should know for questions. So the Narcotics Control Bureau was also constituted in 1986 under the Act. The Act came in 1985 and the Narcotics Control Bureau was also constituted in 1986 under the Act. Okay, now key points about the bill. Let us understand what are the nuances involved in the bill. Okay, the bill would replace an ordinance promulgated earlier this year. This year means 2021. Like, we have just begun with 2022 and we have these articles calling 2021 this year. So the bill would replace an ordinance promulgated earlier this year 2021 to correct a drafting error in a 2014 amendment to the Act. That means an amendment was made in the 2014 and there was an error. A drafting error. They are calling it a drafting error. I don't know whether it was an intentional error or whether it was deliberately committed. They are calling it an error. Let us now understand what was that. Okay, so the bill would replace an ordinance promulgated earlier this year to correct a drafting error in a 2014 amendment to the Act. Before the 2014 amendment, Clause 8A of Section 2 contained subclauses 1 to 5 which define the term illicit traffic. Okay, what is an illicit traffic? Illicit traffic is any movement of thing which is prohibited or which is banned, or the usage or trafficking of which is a punishable offense. Illicit means illegal. So before the 2014 amendment, clause 8A of section 2 contained subclauses 1 to 5 which define the term illicit traffic. In 2014, the Act was amended and the clause number of the definition for such illicit activities was changed. Okay. In 2014, the act was amended and the clause number of the definition for such illicit activities was changed. Okay, are you getting my point? In 2014, the act was amended and the clause number of the definition for such illicit activities was changed. However, the section 27A on penalty for financing these illicit activities was not amended and continued to refer to the earlier clause number of the definition. What actually happened in 2014? There was an amendment made in the NDPS Act of 1985. The act changed the clause which contained the clause number, like we have the clauses, clause A, B, C, D, E. Okay, clauses. These clauses, one of the clauses, okay, these clauses contained the definition for illicit activities or illicit traffic. Okay, and the clause number of the definition for such illicit activities was changed. Clause number change कर दिया, ठीक है। 27A में, अब आप मेरी बात समझ लीजिएगा यहाँ पे आराम से। 27A में क्या हुआ? 27A में जो इलिसिट एक्टिविटीज की डेफिनेशन ऊपर वाले क्लॉसेस में दी थी, उनको फिनेंस करने की पनिशमेंट 27A में दी हुई थी। तो जब ऊपर का क्लॉज नंबर चेंज हुआ था तो 27A में भी वो चीज चेंज होनी चाहिए थी कि फॉर एग्जांपल क्लॉज A में जो डेफिनेशन दी हुई है, एक्टिविटीज दी हुई है, उसकी सजा ये है। अब क्लॉज A से हटके वो D में आ गया, तो D में आप 27A को भी तो चेंज करेंगे, क्योंकि 27A में ये ऊपर रेफर करेगा कि वो जो पहले लिखा हुआ था कि वहां पर क्लॉज A में जो एक्टिविटीज दी हुई है, तो वो चीज चेंज नहीं की, वहां पर A को हटा के D करना चाहिए था। आई एम एक्सप्लेनिंग यू थ्रू एन एग्जाम्पल, सिंपल एग्जाम्पल। जो क्लॉज नंबर है वो चेंज हो गया है, और 27A में जहां पर इसकी पेनाल्टी दी हुई थी फॉर फाइनेंसिंग दीज इलिसिट एक्टिविटीज वाज नॉट अमेंडेड एंड इट कंटिन्यूड टू रेफर टू द अर्लियर क्लॉज नंबर ऑफ द डेफिनेशन। वो ही चीज उसी इट कंटिन्यूड टू रेफर टू द अर्लियर क्लॉज नंबर ऑफ द डेफिनेशन। ओके, ये बात समझ में आ गई? तो 27A को भी अमेंड करना चाहिए था, बट 27A अमेंड नहीं हुआ। यहां तक कोई प्रॉब्लम है आप लोगों को? अगर बात नहीं समझ में आई हो, आई कैन एक्सप्लेन इट अगेन एंड यू आर मोस्ट वेलकम टू टेल मी दैट यू हैव नॉट अंडरस्टूड। Please tell me if you have not understood. Okay, I'll repeat it now. अब मैं एग्जाम्पल दे रहा हूं आप लोगों को। कोई भी एक्ट में आप एक एक्ट समझ लें, अज्यूम कर लें अपनी तरफ से। सेक्शन 1 में एक डेफिनेशन दी हुई है किसी भी चीज की कि ये करना कानूनन जुर्म होगा, ये चीज गलत है और ये करना कानूनन जुर्म होगा। दिस इज गोइंग टू बी अ पनिशेबल ऑफेंस। सेक्शन 1। सेक्शन 2 और सेक्शन 3 फॉर एग्जाम्पल, सेक्शन 3 फॉर एग्जाम्पल contains the quantum of punishment. Okay, contains the quantum of punishment for the activities contained in section 1. section 1 में एक एक्टिविटी लिखी हुई है और उसमें ही लिखा हुआ है इस एक्टिविटी को करना कानूनन जुर्म होगा. There is an activity mentioned in section 1. This is just an example. I'm explaining you by simplifying the situation. There is section 1 of any law. Assume like law X. So law X के section 1 में लिखा हुआ है there is an activity and it mentions the activity and it also says that it is a punishable offense. Section 3 says that whatever has been mentioned in section 1 shall be punishable with 10 years of imprisonment. Like section 3 contains the quantum of punishment. Like section 3 contains the quantum of punishment. Okay. So section 3, if section 3 contains quantum of punishment, and for example, if in future an amendment act is brought and section 1 is amended and the number of the section is changed. For example, whatever was written in section 1 has been brought in section 2, then do you think section 3 needs to be amended? The answer would be yes, because section 3 refers to the language of the section 3 was that whatever has been written or mentioned in section 1 shall be punishable with 10 years of imprisonment. So you will have to replace that word section 1 with section 2, right? Right? Will you do that? Because whatever was written in section 1 has now been brought under section 2. So the number of the section has been changed, the serial number of the section has been changed, and so whatever has been referred to by section 3 also needs to be changed. Because if you are changing the number of the section, the serial number of the section, and you are not changing the any other provision which is referring to it, okay, specifically, then there is going to be the problem. Section 1 is no more. Section 2 now contains whatever was earlier contained by section 1. So section 3 also needs to be amended. Right? Section 3 also needs to be amended. Exactly the same thing has happened. You know, in 2014, section 2 of the NDPS Act 1985 was amended, and the definition of illicit traffic, the clause, जैसे clause 8 उसका जो सब क्लॉज था, सब क्लॉज का नंबर चेंज कर दिया. ठीक है, नंबर चेंज कर दिया. 27A में जहां पर क्वांटम ऑफ पनिशमेंट दी हुई थी, this amendment of 2014, this amendment of 2014 changed the serial clause number of the definition of illicit traffic in section 2. However, it left and it did not amend section 27A, which contained the quantum of punishment, for the illicit traffic, while referring to the clause number in which the definition of illicit traffic was contained. So section 27A continued to refer to the earlier clause, which was later amended and changed by 2014, and so there was a disconformity between the number of the clause, or the clause serial clause number, and the clause referred to by section 27A. Is this clear now? This is clear to Anakha, Anilesh. I hope this is also clear to others also. Is this clear to you? Please tell me. Yes, Ankita, the clause has changed. The clause has changed. तो 27A जो उसको रेफर कर रहा था क्लॉज नंबर के साथ, भाई इलिसिट ट्रैफिक की डेफिनेशन पहले क्लॉज 1 में थी, फिर क्लॉज 2 में आ गई, और सेक्शन 27A में लिखा हुआ था कि क्लॉज 1 में जो डेफिनेशन दी हुई है वो पनिशेबल ऑफेंस है। तो 27A को भी तो अमेंड करना चाहिए था, 27A में लिखना चाहिए था क्लॉज 1 नहीं क्लॉज 2, है ना? अब बात समझ में आ गई आपके? तो 27A was left unamended, untouched, and so however it created disconformity between section 27A and section 2. So there was a drafting error in the 2014 amendment. There was a drafting error in the 2014 amendment, okay, which has to be corrected by the latest and the very recent NDPS Amendment Bill 2021. Is this clear now? I hope this is clear to many of you, but even if any one of you is still confused and if you have any ambiguity, I am here to remove it, and please ask me and do not hesitate. Okay, so the ordinance amended the section on penalty to change the reference to the new clause number. Is that clear now? This ordinance has amended the section on penalty. Which section? Section 27 capital A. Section 27 capital A has been amended by this ordinance, okay, to change the reference to the new clause number. Reference to the new clause number. Okay. Is this clear? Now, in a recent judgment, the Tripura High Court has held that until the appropriate legislative change occurs by amending section 27A of the NDPS Act appropriately, subclauses 1 to 5 of clause 8A of section 2 of the NDPS Act shall suffer effect of deletion. In a recent judgment, Tripura High Court has held that until the appropriate legislative change occurs by amending section 27A of the NDPS Act appropriately, subclauses 1 to 5 of clause 8A of section 2 of the NDPS Act shall suffer effect of deletion. That means Tripura High Court had understood that there is a drafting error in this section and therefore it shall be construed as deleted unless it is like until it is undergoes the appropriate legislative change. Okay, is this clear also? Unless this undergoes the appropriate legislative change, this shall be construed as deleted. That's it. Section 27A of the NDPS Act. Now let us read what is there in section 27A of the NDPS Act. The provision reads that whoever indulges in financing directly or indirectly any of the activities specified in subclauses 1 to 5 of clause 8A of section 2 or harbors any person engaged in any of the aforementioned activities. Okay, so section 27A of the NDPS Act. Baat Jazbatum is asking what is the name of the case. We are not reading any case. This Tripura High Court case, I don't know. There are a number of cases, like in lakhs, these kinds of cases. We cannot remember every name of the every case. That's not possible. Leave it. That is not important. That is not important here. Section 27A of the NDPS Act, the provision reads that whoever indulges in financing directly or indirectly any of the activities specified in subclauses 1 to 5 of clause 8A of section 2 or harbors any person engaged in any of the aforementioned activities, or harbors any person engaged in any of the aforementioned activities. So section 27A simply contains the creates a punishment. Section 27A simply creates punishment that whoever indulges in financing directly or indirectly any of the activities specified in subclauses 1 to 5 of clause 8A of section 2 or harbors any person engaged in any of the aforementioned activities, then what is the quantum of punishment? He shall be punishable with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 10 years but which may extend to 20 years, and shall also be liable to fine which shall not be less than 1 lakh rupees but which may extend to 2 lakh rupees. Okay. Now tell me, what is rigorous imprisonment? What is rigorous imprisonment? What are the two kinds of imprisonments? Ankita, I gave that as an example, section 1 and section 2. It was just a fictitious thing that I cited as an example. That's it. What is rigorous imprisonment? No. Yes, Prableen is right. Imprisonment with work. आप लोगों ने फिल्मों में अक्सर सुना होगा, टीवी में सुना होगा, कैद बा मशक्कत. मशक्कत मतलब लेबर करवाना. कैद बा मशक्कत, लेबर करवाना. What are the two kinds of imprisonment? Anaka and Nilesh is very right. Simple and rigorous. Simple is that a person is imprisoned or put behind the bars or put in jail without being subject to any labor or work. But rigorous is that when he is subject to do labor, when he is supposed to do labor inside the jail. You will be given utensils to wash. You will be given chapati. You will be asked to prepare chapatis if you are good at it, and if you are good at cooking, you will be given, these kinds of work. Okay, rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 10 years. Which shall not be less than 10 years. Yes, everyone is right. Simple and rigorous. Simple and rigorous. So this is a rigorous imprisonment. यहाँ पे कैद बा मशक्कत है. Section 27A creates punishment and it also talks about the quantum of punishment. The nature of the punishment and as well as the quantum of punishment. So he shall be punishable with rigorous imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 10 years but which may extend to 20 years and shall also be liable to fine. Like the punishment may extend from 10 years to 20 years or anywhere between 10 and 20. It may be either 10, it may be either 20, or it may somewhere be between 10 and 20. Okay, depending upon the nature and gravity of the offense committed by the particular accused. This depends. And also there are various other deciding factors while deciding the quantum of punishment which the court has to reckon with. So it's going to be the fine also, there's a slab. It has to be 1 lakh. It can go up to 2 lakh or it can be somewhere between 1 lakh and 2 lakhs. Okay, now there is a proviso. Provided that provisos often remind us that baat abhi khatam nahi hui hai. It's going on and on and on. Okay. So provided that the court may, for reasons to be recorded in the judgment, impose a fine exceeding 2 lakh rupees. Now the courts have been given this liberty to, the courts have been given this liberty to exceed or impose a fine exceeding 2 lakh rupees. राइट? अगर कोई बहुत सीरियस ऑफेंस है, like of the highest gravity of nature, okay, then the court, while citing those special reasons to be recorded in the judgment, impose a fine exceeding 2 lakh rupees. Exceeding 2 lakh rupees. Okay, now reasons of Section 27A getting inoperable. The text of the provision says that offences mentioned under Section 2, 8A, subclauses 1 to 5 are punishable through Section 27A. However, Section 2, 8A, subclauses 1 to 5, which is supposed to be the catalogue of offences, does not exist after the 2014 amendment. So, if Section 27A penalizes a blank list or a non-existent provision, it can be argued that it is virtually inoperable. Okay. So actually the 2014 amendment, deleted so many things from Section 2, from subclauses 1 to 5, which Section 27A earlier referred to. So 27A, Section 27A has automatically or virtually become inoperable. And that's what the Tripura High Court said, that it shall be construed as deleted unless it undergoes an appropriate legislative change. Okay, so Section 27A now penalizes a blank list or a non-existent provision, and it can be argued that it is virtually inoperable, because now the clauses it refers to is now a blank list and it does not exist. Okay. Objective of the bill: to help victims of drug abuse to come out of addiction. Objective of the bill: to help victims of drug abuse to come out of addiction. What are the objectives of the bill? The objective of the bill is to help victims of drug abuse to come out of addiction. Okay. To decriminalize possession of a limited quantity of drugs for personal use while regulating certain operations such as manufacturing, transport and consumption of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. You have to decriminalize possession of a limited quantity of drugs for a personal use while regulating certain operations such as manufacturing, transport and consumption of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. You have to decriminalize it means, like, if somebody who is licensed to do that for medicinal purposes, for example, if he is possessing a limited quantity of drugs, limited here means stands the allowed quantity, which is permitted quantity. If for example you are licensed to make medicines, you are licensed by the government to make medicines, and there are certain medicines that you are permitted to manufacture which are made by the narcotic drugs and while using psychotropic substances, then you must be possessing a limited or permitted quantity of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances, obviously, because you have to use them for manufacturing drugs or manufacturing medicines. So the objective of the bill is to decriminalize the possession of a permitted or a limited quantity of drugs for personal use while regulating certain operations such as manufacturing, transport and consumption of narcotic drugs and psychotropic psychotropic substances. Okay, Prableen is saying medicinal purposes like government licensed poppy cultivation. Yes, that can be taken as an example. Good one. Concerns related to the bill. The new provision is giving retrospective effect from 1st May 2014. Now look at this. There are some concerns related to the bill. What is the concern? the new provision is giving retrospective effect from 1st May 2014. What is retrospective effect and what is prospective effect? I hope you must be knowing this. Now let us see how many of you know what is retrospective and what is prospective. Yes, Prablin. But Jazbat Tordom is also answering correctly. Retrospective means from the back date. Applicable to retro. Law applicable to the provisions prior to 1st May 2014. Not exactly. Not exactly. Applicable prior to the act as well. No. Don't go so much behind. Retrospective का मतलब होता है बैक डेट से लागू करना. आपको इसमें कोई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल फ्लॉ नजर आ रहा है? कैन यू सी दैट दिस एप्लीकेशन ऑफ दिस बिल with retrospective effect suffers from a constitutional flaw? Do you think? Astha Singh is mean prospective means applicable from the date of commencement. Yes, that's from from a future date. Mohammad Riaz is also correctly answering has backdated effect. Yes. So, Prablin, if you are saying yes, then tell me what is the constitutional flaw it suffers from. Yes. Right, Astha. Yes, Aman, you are also right. Exactly, Prablin. Article 20. You are correct. Article 20. No, not double jeopardy. Not double jeopardy. Do you remember Article 20 Clause 1? Do you remember Article 20 Clause 1? Protection from ex post facto law. Protection from ex post facto law. That means any criminal law cannot be applied from a back date. Any criminal law cannot be applied from the back date. It needs necessarily, yes, ex post facto law. Yes, exactly. Ex post facto law. This is our fundamental right. Okay. This is our fundamental right. I've understood, Prablin, don't worry. This is our fundamental right to get protected or to stay protected from the application of any ex post facto law. Like, for example, you are doing something today which is not an offense, and if tomorrow a law is made by parliament making that which you were doing today as a punishable offense, and it gives it a retrospective effect, then you will have to face punishment without any rhyme or reason, unjustly. This is going to be a serious travesty of justice, because what you did at the time of doing it was not an offense. It was not an offense. You did it with honest intentions and you knowingly did it that it is not an offense. But the parliament on a future date makes a law and makes it a punishable offense with retrospective effect while punishing you. This is going to be the serious travesty of justice, and this should not happen. So the criminal laws cannot have retrospective effects, because under Article 20 Clause 1, we have this protection against ex post facto law. However, any commercial or any civil law can have a retrospective effect. For example, the central government can collect any tax from the back date. For example, if it asks you to collect, give the arrears of tax from 1st January 2021, then you will have to pay the taxes. You will have to pay the taxes. So the new provision that is allowed. Okay, but the criminal law cannot have retrospective effect. So the new provision is giving retrospective effect from 1st May 2014. That means a criminal provision is given which will not hold good in law. It also violates the fundamental rights in Article 20, because a person can be punished for an offense for which there is a law in existence at the time of commission of the offense. Okay, because a person can be punished only for an offense which is actually a punishable offense at the time of its commission. Article 20 grants protection against arbitrary and excessive punishment to an accused person, whether citizen or foreigner or legal person like a company or a corporation. Okay, Article 20 grants protection against arbitrary and excessive punishment to an accused person, whether citizen or foreigner or legal person like a company or a corporation. So this protection against arbitrary and excessive punishment, not even the quantum of punishment can be changed. Only the punishment which was written there at the time of the commission of the offense, only that quantum of punishment can be given. Later on, for example, if the government increases the quantum of punishment, then that increased quantum of punishment will not be applicable from the past date. Okay, even it has been taken care of that the quantum of punishment has to be exactly the same which was there at the time of the commission of the offense. So it seems to violate, like prima facie, it seems to violate the Article 20 clause 1, protection against ex post facto law. Okay, now next comes like the highs and lows of the NDPS. You can go through this. 1985 Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act enacted to consolidate narcotic drug laws. She's actor Rakul Preet Singh. She was like accused and she was looped in the drug mafia case while Sushant Singh Rajput's suicide and the drug angle was being investigated. So actor Rakul Preet Singh was also looped in the she was also implicated in the drug mafia case. Okay, 1989 look at this, the cursor is here. Okay, look at this. 1985 में क्या हुआ, 1989 में क्या हुआ? Act amended with strict provisions. Sections added include under section under 27A for financing illicit traffic. Illicit traffic means production, possession, sale, purchase, transportation, warehousing. Okay. Riya Chakravarti was booked under section 27A. Act amended to 2001, Act amended to rationalize sentencing, easy on edicts, bail liberalized. Okay, Act now defines quantity at play. Act now defines 3 categories: a small quantity, commercial quantity, and more than small but less than commercial. Okay, penalties for possession: small quantity up to 1 year rigorous imprisonment or fine up to 10,000 or both. Commercial quantity 10 to 20 years, rigorous imprisonment and fine of rupees 1 to 2 lakh. Then more than small quantity but less than commercial quantity is up to 10 years, rigorous imprisonment, fine up to rupees 1 lakh. Okay, what are the drugs? Here's a list given. Definition of small and commercial quantities. Look at the cursor. Okay, definition of small and commercial quantities: stimulants, hallucinogens, narcotics. These are the quantities given, the list of the drugs given, and also the small quantity, the commercial quantity also. You can go through these news on various internet websites. Okay, now provision for edicts: a small quantity in possession attracts immunity from prosecution. Consumption is an offense under section 27 of the NDPS Act and punishable with imprisonment of up to 1 year in case of some drugs or 6 months for all other drugs. However, addicts volunteering for treatment get immunity under section 64A of the Act. Okay, initiatives to tackle drug addiction. Narco Coordination Center. The Narco Coordination Center was constituted in 2016 and the scheme of financial assistance to states for narcotics control was revived. Like if you have watched the film Urta Punjab. We have a lot of films made on this, lot of films, and we have a series of like on various web series also. We have a film, we have various films also on the excessive use of drugs. We have certain episodes of various crime shows on Sony and all that. We, these kinds of things have come before us time and again. What has happened, like what initiatives have been taken to tackle drug addiction? So Narco Coordination Center was constituted in 2016, and the scheme of financial assistance to states for narcotic control was revived. Now seizure information management system. Okay, Narcotics Control Bureau has been provided funds for developing a new software, that is Seizure Information Management System, which will create a complete online database of drug offenses and offenders. National Drug Abuse Survey. The government is also conducting a National Drug Abuse Survey to measure trends of drug abuse in India through the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment with the help of National Drug Dependence Treatment Center of AIMS. Project Sunrise. What is Project Sunrise? It was launched by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in 2016 to tackle the rising HIV prevalence in northeastern states in India, especially among people injecting drugs. Okay. NDPS Act. It prohibits a person from producing, possessing, selling, purchasing, transporting, storing, and or consuming any narcotic drug or psychotropic substance. The NDPS Act has since been amended thrice in 1988, 2001 and 2014. The Act extends to the whole of India, and it applies also to all Indian citizens outside India and to all persons on ships and aircraft registered in India. This is exactly like how IPC is applicable on ships and aircrafts registered in India and all to all the Indian people outside India. Okay. Nasha Mukt Bharat. Government has also announced the launch of the Nasha Mukt Bharat or Drug Free India campaign, which focuses on community outreach programs. So this is all about today's topic. If you have any questions, you are most welcome to ask. Yeah, it's only Indian citizens, Ankita. Only Indian citizens. So I guess no more questions. So I'm I am now ending the stream, hoping that things are clear to you. Okay. Hope to see you tomorrow. Till then, all the very best and goodbye.